last time we learned on Friday, we were questioning what does it mean yayin v'sheichar al teisht in the Chumash. I think Ezra asked this. It says sheichar. So what does sheichar really mean? Does it mean any drink that's meshaker, or is it is it beer? Does it mean yayin derech shekrusai, or that wine that's intoxicating? So it actually is a machlekes in Gemara Krisus. I looked it up. It's a Gemara in Krisus on page 13b, and there's a whole discussion over there of what does sheichar mean. And the truth is, Rashi in Parsha Shmini seems to follow one view, and he says yayin v'sheichar, that a kohen doing the avodah, kohen is not allowed to do the avodah when he's drunk, not allowed to do the service in the Beis Hamikdash when he's drunk. So the pasuk for it is yayin v'sheichar al teisht. It talks about it right after the death of Nadav and Avihu that brought this that they brought that foreign fire and strange fire, and it also, according to some opinions, is suya yayin. They went in when they were drunk. So the pasuk says that right afterwards that wine and sheichar you shouldn't drink. Yayin sheichar, yayin v'sheichar. I'm trying to remember the pasuk. Al teisht. Atav yeah. Don't you and your children don't drink wine and sheichar. So the question is, so what does sheichar really mean? Of course, nowadays we call sheichar beer, but that's not necessarily what it meant in the pasuk. So one opinion is, so again, Rashi says that yayin v'sheichar means wine that's intoxicating. That's the way Rashi learns, and that's one of the opinions over here. It means that's wine that's intoxicating wine. One of the opinions here says it means wine, the amount that will intoxicate someone. So it means a revius. It has to be a certain measure, at least 3 or 4 ounces, and it has to be 40 days fermented. And the reason why it says wine is to tell you even that if it's not that, it's still prohibited, but it's not that it's not you don't get the punishment.
I always thought, just in my own mind, I never researched it, but I always thought it's something stronger than wine.
So Rabbi Yehuda says,
or something, something stronger.
Right. So, Rabbi Yehuda says that wine means regular wine. How do you know other drinks that are intoxicating are also prohibited? He says that's what you learn from the sheichar. So why does it have to say wine? If it's saying sheichar, it would include wine also. Anything that's intoxicating. I think this is the way Ezra understood it, because this is Rabbi Yehuda's view that every intoxicated, that's what it says, sheichar. The question is, so why does it have to say wine? So it says because wine, a person gets the death penalty. Sheichar, it's a prohibition. It's not the death penalty. I think maybe the Rambam learns this way, because the Rambam says you don't get the death. You get lashes, but you don't get the death penalty. So I think maybe the Rambam follows this view. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's the so the Gemara goes through. Does he learn it from Nazir, and where do you learn from? But that's basically a Gemara in Krisos. Okay, so getting back to our Gemara, we were talking about doing the avodah if Kainim are allowed to drink wine nowadays. This was a very practical question of in today's day and age. In fact, there is one of the Shailas Tshuvas Svarim, one of the halachic books of Jewish law from in the last few centuries. So there's one of them. He has an opinion, a very innovative view, that he says on Shabbos Mincha, because people have drunk wine, so therefore, because it's Shabbos meal, people drink and they get a little shikker. So he says, therefore, you don't have to give the kohen the first aliyah on Shabbos Mincha. Now, of course, we don't follow that view, but it is interesting to know that he takes it to that extent that people are known to drink and get a little off, they're not in their regular state of mind, and therefore he says I think it's the Maram Shik. He gives such a view that Shabbos Mincha, you don't have to give cover to the Kayin, because he's basically like an Israelite, because he's a Shasu Yayin. So, but anyway, of course, we don't follow that. But the Gemara here. Let's go over what we learned on Friday. So we learned that the Mikan Amru. Let's start from that point. We're in 17a, so I'm just going to go over it outside. So it says that from this idea of the Anshe Mishmar, the people who are on standby, if they're allowed to drink wine at night but not by day, and Anshe Beisav, people who are doing the work that day in the Beis Hamikdash, they're not allowed to drink wine at all that day or night. So the Gemara says we from here we conclude we see from here any kohen that knows which mishmar he's from and which Beisav he's from. So, and he knows that he's accepted. The way Rashi learns this is Bate Avos of Kavuan. He's from a kosher group of Kayanim. So they're not allowed to drink wine that day, whenever it comes, every 24 weeks or whatever. Every 24, every cycle of the 24 groups. And if he doesn't know which Beisav he's from, but he knows which Mishmar he's from, so he doesn't know what day of the week, but he knows which week, he can't drink wine that whole week. And then it says, and what happens if he doesn't know which Mishmar he's from, but he knows he's accepted? So in that case, he's not allowed to drink wine all year round. The Rebbe says that in logic, that would make sense. And not only that, but I would go even further, Rebbe says. I would prohibit every kohen completely from drinking any wine at all, even if they know everything. They know which week is theirs. Because when Mashiach comes, we're going to build the Beis HaMikdash, and who knows what we're going to need. We're going to need, and who knows if we're going to have the same order of the 24 groups. So we might need a huge amount of kohenim, much more than anyone ever imagined, because people are going to be donating karbanos like left and right. And who says we're going to follow the same order? So Rebbe says, in logic, we should prohibit every kohen from ever drinking wine, ever. The only thing is, he says, takanosoi kalkalosoi. The solution is the fact that because it's been so long since we've had the Beis HaMikdash, so we're not obligated in being chayshish. We're not obligated in suspecting that the Beis HaMikdash will be built this second. Because we don't have to because it's been so long, we don't have an obligation of worrying about that. Therefore, kohanim are allowed to drink wine. That's the.
Rabbi, how can you make a statement like that?
It sounds shocking, no?
When a kohen also has a requirement to make kiddush.
Oh, we're lucky now. We can have grape juice.
So, as Jeffrey just said, I mean, there are options of getting around kiddush in addition to having other people make kiddush. I mean, but in conclusion, you could make kiddush on challah if need be, if you don't have wine, so you could get rid of your wine that Shabbos. But in practice, it's not a problem. But if there was a problem, and we're worried about the Beis HaMikdash, so you would have to you'd have to follow other options. Unless you're trying to say that maybe there could be a leniency because, well, I don't know if it would be a leniency. No, the question would be, could you drink other drinks that are intoxicating? Would there be more room for leniency? And I don't think so, because according to all opinions, it seems that the other drinks are also. No, maybe if according to one opinion, it's only wine derech shekrusai. So according to that view, wine that's intoxicating, would that view hold that other drinks? In other words, we don't follow that. We follow all drinks that are intoxicating are prohibited. But according to the view, like Rashi says, yayin, that's meshaker. So what does he hold about other drinks? What would that opinion hold? Again, I didn't learn that Gemara in Creases. I just like looked over it. So I have to look into it more, see what that opinion really holds about other drinks. But if that opinion would hold, maybe other drinks are prohibited midrabanan, let's say, to do the avodah, shikrus. Maybe. So if that would be true, so then maybe you could be lenient and say that it's only wine, so you could make kiddush on other drinks, which would mean maybe it would in a certain sense would be worse, really, because you get much more drunk on other drinks than on wine. Well, the truth of the matter is, maybe there's you know what? I think the answer to your question, Ezra, is much easier. A better answer. Forget about all that. The better answer is this: how much do you really need to drink in order to be Yitzchok Kiddush?
3 ounces, something like that.
You don't have to drink the full revius. You don't have to drink the full revius. So malay lugmav, that's correct. So basically, which is less than a revius. So therefore, you could fulfill kiddush without drinking a revius of wine. Then you can do the avodah. So it's not a problem.
No, my question was on the individual who basically says that, based on what we said, then Kohanim shouldn't be allowed to drink at all.
But it means a revius.
So my response to him is, what do you come up with such an extreme point of view?
Right. So the reason for it is Meheri Yibana Amigdash. You might need everyone. It might be a Zavaida. But the thing would be that l'chayra, it's not a problem. Here, the Rambam says, any kayin kosher la'avodah, if he drank wine, is also to enter. He entered his avodas puzzle, chayv misum b'dei shamayim. That's if he drank a revius wine in one moment, bavas achas, wine that was fermented 40 days. He drank less, or drank a revius wine and he stopped, or mixed it with water, or drank wine megitay. He's putter and he's not machal avodah. Ooh, sounds like maybe he even less than that he's not allowed to.
Why?
He says putter. That could mean that he's exempt, but he's still not allowed to do it. Have to look into that. If he drank more, then it doesn't. Then
for sure he's not allowed.
What? Yeah, they drink more, even though it was mixed with water, and he stopped. Chayv misa. Now, if he's drunk from other drinks, the Rambam says it's usher to enter the Beis Hamikdash. And if he entered and he did the service, he's shikar from other mashakrim, so he's like it, gets malchus. Because you're not chayiv misa only on wine b'shas avoda, and he's not machal avoda, only shikar from wine. Then he says, if he drank only a revius and it had water in it, even a drop, the wine left him already, and he's mutter to do the avodah. So maybe that would be the answer. If he mixes a drop of wine, I see the Ravid argues, and the Ravid says, you're still not allowed to do it. You can't say mutter la'avoid. The Ravid seems to argue.
He always argues.
So
I think that's the only reason why
maybe that would be a way to do it. That would be, my phone just died. But that's the more or less few options, and you have Jeffrey's option of drinking grape juice, which even though there's a shiloh about drinking grape, not everyone agrees you can make kiddush on grape juice. But if you squeeze the grapes yourself, then everyone agrees you can make it on grape juice. It's when it's when they put that chemical in the grape juice that causes it not to be able to ferment. That's the problem. So if you squeeze your own grape juice, that would be an option. Or if you get rid of all your wine in grape juice, and then you could make it on challah or on, yeah. So then that would be an option. Or you could hear it from someone else. Another person could be mitzi you with Kiddush and fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush. Seemingly, these are all options. Okay. Anyway, the Gemara mentioned over here, so we had Rebbe's view, and Abaye says, who do we rely on nowadays that the Kainim drink wine? We follow Rebbe. Then the Gemara said that Anshe Mishmar, Anshe Maimed, they can't take haircuts. On Thursday, they're allowed to because of covered Shabbos. What was the reason for that? So Rabbi Rachana said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that we want them not to push off their haircuts or their laundering for this week. We want them to do it in advance. If they're not going to be able to do it during the week, they'll do it in advance, and then they'll enter more respectful. If they push it off, if they're going to say, "Oh, I'll do it when I get there in Yerushalayim," and when I'm at the, so they're going to enter while they're menuvel, while they're like disgusting and unkempt. So then the Gemara brings a brisa about people taking haircuts, different important people. The king is supposed to take a haircut every day. Kohen Gadol takes a haircut
Shabbos
once a week. Right. I guess it means Motzei Shabbos he would take it. I don't know. That's a good question. Was it 6 days a week, or did he do extra, like right before Shabbos? Did he do a little haircut, or right after Shabbos? I don't know.
Trim.
What?
A little trim.
A little trim. That's the question. What is there to trim if you take a haircut every day? I wonder if it can grow even.
Well, I know my beard needs trimming several times a week, so could be hair too.
So the Kohen Gadol is once a week. The Kohen Hedyot, the regular Kohen, is every 30 days. And we said we said, what's the reason a king is every day? It's because Melech b'yafyai techazana inecha. A king is supposed to be seen in his beauty and his glory, and should always look the best. Kohen Gadol, whenever the new Mishmar comes, the Kohen Gadol has to look good every time the new Mishmar comes. Has to look presentable. The Kohen Hedyot is every 30 days because we have a Gzeira Shava. We learned from Nazir. Para means 30. Para is a hair that grows 30 days, and so we learned that he's not allowed to have his hair more than 30 days long. And we know by Nazir is Stam Naziris is 30 days. And the Gemara says, how do you know that a Stam Naziris, a regular Nazir? Nazir means someone a Nazirite, who separates himself from wine and from hair cutting and from going to cemeteries and touching and being near a dead body, touching a dead body. So the Nazir accepts on himself that certain holiness, separation of from being separates himself from the regular way of the world, so to speak, and his acceptance generally is a 30-day. He could accept it longer, but the common acceptance, if you don't say anything, is 30 days. And how do we know that? It's from the word Yihya, Kadosh Yihya. Yihya is the numerical value of 30. So it's Yud with the two Hays and another Yud, so it comes to 30. So Rav Papa tells Abaye that maybe the Torah means Leilirbu Klal, which would mean that it shouldn't even have hair for 30 days. In other words, maybe every day a regular kohen should get a haircut. The Gemara answered that the way the pasuk is written, it implies that he could have hera, but not more than that. Hera lahavi shluchehu delay l'shalchu. So he could let it grow, but not more than 30 days. So that's the the understanding of the Gemara that regular kohen doesn't need it to in other words, ordinary kohen can have his hair for 30 days, grow for 30 days, not more than that. The Gemara says, what about nowadays? Why did we let? So we talked about before, kohen not allowed to drink wine, maybe. What about taking haircuts? So initially, the Gemara says that it's only applicable bisman bia, which means when there's a Beis Hamikdash. And if there's no Beis Hamikdash, not a problem. Then the Gemara says, what are you talking about? What about wine? We have the whole thing, right? Rebbe says kohenim officially shouldn't drink wine at all. So, but the problem is, what do the rabbis hold? The rabbis hold you're not allowed to drink. According to that, they should also be taking haircuts every 30 days. I've never heard of kohenim taking haircuts every 30 days. So the Gemara says a few different answers. In fact, I think we're going to start in. Let me do this Gemara inside from 17b. Let's start. Third line in the Gemara. So this would be in the Art Scroll 17b1. (17b1) on the third line of the Gemara. In the Art Scroll, it would be the Pacha Efsher. It would probably be about the 12th line in the Art Scroll. Pacha Efsher de Masaper va'ayil. The Gemara wants to say that taking a haircut, not a big deal. Wine, if you're drunk, who knows how long it's going to take till you get ice drunk, till you get out of being drunk, or till you're finished, till you're back to normal. But the haircut, you could masaper va'ayil. You take the haircut and then you could go into the Beis Hamikdash and do the service. So therefore, it's not a problem. The Gemara says, if so, wine also, person who drank wine also, after the Gani Porta Va'ayil, he could sleep a little and he can enter the Beis Hamikdash. To Rami Bar Abba, like we have a statement from Rami Bar Abba that says derech mil, if a person travels 1 mil, which is either 18 or 24 minutes, walks that amount of time, 2,000 amos. It's a certain measurement of, also an argument how big, how much that is, how much is an amma, 18 inches, 20 inches, to 19 point something inches, to 22 inches, 24 inches. Different opinions about how big an amma is, but basically 2,000 of those basically takes about 18 to 24 minutes. So if a person walks that, he can get rid of the wine, the effects of the wine. Bashina Kolshu also, if he goes to sleep for a short amount of time, it's mefigan esayayin. It takes away, it dissipates the wine. So Gemara, so theoretically, a kohen should be allowed to drink wine and let him go to sleep for a minute. Then he'll be fine. He can do the avodah. So the Gemara answers, "Lav mi'itmar Allah." Didn't we learn about this? This only applies if he drank a measurement of a revius, which is 3 or 4 ounces, and 5 ounces, different opinions. But that only applies if he drank that amount. If he drank more than a revius, for sure, the sleep will matrid, it will disturb him, and the drink will for sure the whey will disturb him, meaning it won't dissipate the wine, it'll make it work stronger, and the sleep will make the wine also go stronger, and it'll take a long time for the so if he only drank a revius of wine, fine, maybe that'll work, but more than that, It actually you don't have any option. You can't get rid of it too fast. Ravashi says so the Gemara says that so wait so what comes out from this whole thing? What comes out is that we're stuck here. We're trying to figure out why Kohanim would be allowed to take haircuts nowadays, but they're not allowed to drink wine nowadays, according to the rabbis. If they know which day is their avodah, rabbi said that they can't do it. If it falls on that day, they can't drink wine. So whatever day that falls on. So the question is, why would they be allowed to take haircuts? They should also make sure. Why should they be not taking haircuts? They should always be taking haircuts. At least when it comes to their day that they're going to be needing to do the service, you should need to take a haircut. So Gemara initially wanted to say that there's a difference because a haircut you could take right away, and wine, you don't really have a way to get out of. But the Gemara says, what do you mean? You could go to sleep for a moment. But the Gemara says, no, that doesn't work. So with wine, there's no option because if you drink more than a revius, going to sleep doesn't work, taking a walk doesn't work. So therefore, wine is a problem for them to drink. A haircut, no problem. They'll take a haircut. So that's the first answer, that the wine, there's no way around. You drink wine, you're stuck. So therefore, the rabbis would prohibit him from drinking wine. A haircut you could take. So that's the first answer of the Gemara. Yes, Ben.
But once you take a haircut, it's not going to change for a while back to where it was. But once you take some wine, after an hour or so, it will change.
Well, now, what are you talking about? What do you want to change? We don't want you to change.
You're not supposed to drink the wine because it might impair your walk.
Right.
Okay. But taking a haircut is changing your looks, and it's not going to be back to where it was for a while.
Yeah, so the thing is that we want the kohen to look good for the service in the Beis HaMikdash. This kohen is
then why are we talking about it?
So we don't want him to go back to his regular looks. We want him to look good. Okay, we don't want him to go back to his regular looks.
Then why do they mention?
The guy who's drunk, we want him to go back to his regular self.
So it's not a comparison.
So I'm not sure what you mean.
Wine disturbs your work. The haircut is not disturbing your work. It makes you look better.
So think about it this way.
Sure, you can take it. So what's the question here?
Think about it this way. We need these kohanim to be ready to do the service.
Okay.
If they're drunk, they're not going to be able to do the service. If their hair is long, they're not going to be able to do the service. So the question is, should we always prohibit them from drinking wine? Because we need them to be ready to do the service. If the Beis HaMikdash is built, Mashiach can come any second. Yeah. Beis HaMikdash will be built. They need to do the service. So should we prohibit him from drinking wine? That's question number one. Should we make him take a haircut every 30 days? That's question number two. So the understanding of the Gemara is that, yes, we have to prohibit him from drinking wine. If he's from that, he knows which family he's from and he knows what week, he knows he's kosher. He's prohibited from drinking wine that week. Or if he doesn't know, he might be prohibited the whole week or the whole day or the whole year. He could be prohibited always. If he knows that he's a kosher kohen, but he doesn't know what day, he's always prohibited drinking wine. That's the opinion of the Chachamim. So that wine, we've concluded he's prohibited from. Always can't drink wine because he's always got to be ready. We got to get rid of that wine. If he has wine, we got to get rid of it. We won't be able to. We got to make sure he's ready to do the service.
Okay.
What about a haircut? He didn't take a haircut. Should we obligate him to take a haircut every 30 days? Because Mashiach could come today, and in 20 minutes, the Beis HaMikdash will be built, and he's got to be ready to do the service. So should we prohibit him from letting his hair grow long? We prohibited him from drinking wine. Should we prohibit him from letting his hair grow long? The Gemara seems to understand that we don't know of any opinion that he's prohibited from letting his hair grow long, but why would that be different than wine? If wine, we don't let him drink wine, then here we should say we're not going to let your hair grow long because we need you to be ready to do the service. The Gemara says there's a difference. Wine, you can't get rid of it. Once you get drunk, you're stuck. until you wake up, you're stuck. A haircut takes a few minutes. You take the machine and go over your hair, and you're done. You take a fast haircut, you're all set, and therefore it's not a problem. That's the Gemara's answer. That when it comes to drinking wine, it does take a while. Even though a revius you could get rid of right away, but if you drink more than a revius, you can't. So wine, we don't let you drink wine. But when it comes to haircut, we let your hair grow long. You want to have a ponytail? You're Kayan, you have a ponytail, no problem. I mean, I don't know if that's a prohibition of wearing women's clothing, having a ponytail. That's another story, because it could be acting like a woman, having a ponytail. But beside the laws of kahuna, of being ready to do the service, that's not a problem, because we'll give you a haircut right away. Now comes the next answer. Ravashi says, Shasuya yayin machali avoida. Ravashi says there's a difference. Wine, if you drink wine, you ruin the avodah, you invalidate the avodah. So Gozru B'Rabbana, the rabbis made a decree. You can't drink wine. But letting your hair grow long, that's not a problem, because it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, but it's not going to ruin the service. Let's say, person ended up doing the avodah without cutting his hair. It doesn't ruin the service. So obviously, one of the most important things is we don't want to ruin the service in the Beis Hamikdash, and so that's a great concern. And so, because in the long run, if this ever happens, that he did the service without taking a haircut, it won't be a problem. But if he did the service drunk, this Gamam is going to ruin the service. We got to prepare as much as we can to make sure that he never does the service drunk, and so he should never drink. But the hair, we're not so worried about. Even if he did the service with his hair long, it wouldn't be a problem. The Gemara says, is that true, that it doesn't ruin the avodah? The Gemara brings a meisvei, a contradiction from a brisa. Meisvei, ve'elu shein b'misa. These people get the death penalty. Shasuya yayin and purei reish. People who drink wine, and people have long hair, and they did the avodah. So they get misa bidei shamayim. Rashi says it's not regular misa; it's misa bidei shamayim, and the death penalty by the hands of heaven. And the pasuk, if you remember the pasuk, yayin v'shecher al teisht v'vayachem aloy al mayid v'loy samusu, says wine and shecher don't drink when you come to the oyhel mayid, to the tent of meeting, to the mishkan, v'loy samusu, and you won't die. That means that there is the death penalty. So the Gemara understands that. The pasuk says clearly drinking wine is the death penalty. Gemara wants to understand that letting hair grow long is also. What is this? Where do we see this? Gemara says as follows: by wine, drinking wine, it says very clearly. Yain v'sheichar teisht, wine and sheichar, or intoxicating wine, however you want to translate. Again, that's another Gemara, how to translate sheichar. But yain v'sheichar al teisht, don't drink. It says clearly that you shouldn't die. Ela pru reish, but how do you know that person lets his hair grow long, that he deserves a death penalty? He's b'misa. The Brisa said he's b'misa. Now we're explaining the Brisa. We're trying to understand, where did the Brisa get this from? So the chsiv. So because it says
Yecheskel, but it's in Yecheskel.
Yecheskel, thank you. The chsiv, as it says, v'reishim lo yigalechu. It says in their heads, lo yigalechu, they shall not shave. Upera lo yishalechu, and they should not let their hair grow long. Uksiv basrei, and it says right afterwards, v'yayin lo yishtu kol kayin b'vayim el chotzer apnimis, and they can't drink wine when they come to the inner courtyard, the chotzer apnimis. And the understanding is that we compare the two, drinking wine and letting your hair grow long. Compare the hair growing long to drinking wine. Misa, just like drinking wine has the death penalty. Misa, also having your hair grow long is also the deserving of the death penalty. So a kayin seemingly is going to be in the same situation, whether he drinks wine, or as they grow along. And the understanding is that the same law would apply to ruining the service in the temple, that it would make it puzzle. It would make whatever they did in the temple would puzzle it. It would ruin it, and this would then ultimately make a problem to Rav Ashi's answer that we said that Rav Ashi wanted to differentiate, or that wine ruins the service. Haircut doesn't ruin it's not machalal the avodah. According to this, it seems like it's going to ruin the avodah. Umina, and from this, the Gemara says, if we're going to say they're the same law, because we see this some heckish, this comparison. So if wine ruins the avodah, so after also letting your hair grow long is going to be machale avodah. It's going to make the avodah not kosher. It's going to ruin the avodah. In other words, it'll make it choil, it'll make it weekdayish, it'll ruin it, it'll disqualify it. So the Gemara says, light. No. Ki iskish, when is there this comparison? It's lemisahu de iskish. It's only compared to the fact that there's the death penalty. But it's not compared to the ruining the service. Now, the Gemara continues and says, Amla Ravina Rav Ashi. Ravina says to Rav Ashi, Hamakame de Asa Yechezkel Manomra. Before Yechezkel came and said these psukim, who says this is the law? In other words, Yechezkel came way later. So until Yechezkel came, who made this law? How do we know this? How would we know such a thing? You're not allowed to letting your hair grow long is considered it's going to be the death penalty and so on. Before Yechezkel said this, that you compare the kohen who drinks wine to long hair. How do we know this? So Rav Ashi answered Ravina and said, "Well, Tamech, according to you, Adar Rav Chizda, this that Rav Chizda says, Davar Zeh, Miteres Moshe Lo Lamadnu." Did someone say something? I didn't know.
Yeah, he said, but he says, "Be divrei Kabbalah."
Yeah, I thought someone had a question. Okay, so he says this that Rav Chizda says, this that we don't know from the Chumash, Teres Moshe. When we divrei Kabbalah, lamadnu, but we learn it from the Nevi'im, prophets. Kol benechar arel leiv arel basar layavel mukdashi. So it says in the pasuk that anyone that's a arel, and this is a pasuk in Yechezkel also, that it says anyone that's a ben nechar, that's a stranger. So no stranger, if he's not circumcised in the heart or in the flesh, he shall not come to my temple. Lo yavel migdashi, shouldn't come to my temple. So Hamakami dasi Yechezkel ban amra. So before Yechezkel came, he's coming up with this law, but how do we know that? Ela Gemara Gomer law. Rather, it must have been a type of Gemara, a tradition that we had from Har Sinai. So Yechezkel came and he made it a pasuk in Tanakh, but really it's a Gemara, it's a tradition from Har Sinai. Hachanami Gemara Gomer law. Here also it is a tradition from Har Sinai, Allah al Sinai, that Koyanim are gonna get the death penalty for having long hair, just like just like that they get the death penalty for wine, for drinking wine. For doing the service after they drink And Yechezkel came and put it into a pasuk. So basically, the Gemara concludes over here that it could be that there is a death penalty for letting one's hair grow long, but it doesn't necessarily ruin the avodah. And because it doesn't ruin the avodah, it could be that the rabbis didn't make a gzeira, they didn't make a decree, because it doesn't ruin the avodah. Now, there is a parenthesis here that seems to be, some say it doesn't belong here. It seems to be questionable parentheses that says, that when do we have this halacha Moshe Sinai? Halacha Moshe Sinai applies to the fact that there's the death penalty if a person lets his hair, if a kohen lets his hair grow long and he does the service, but it doesn't apply to ruining the avodah. So it's possible, again, even after this Gemara, we don't have a clear answer, clear ruling about the does it invalidate the service or not. So seemingly you could differentiate and say maybe he deserves the death penalty, but it doesn't invalidate the service. We don't have clarity that we don't have a clear thing that it validates service. So it could be Rav Ashi's answer does answer the Gemara. Now there's a little Zion over here, which says the Maharshal takes this out. And the reason he takes it out, and then there's a little hay over there. The little hay is we had this brackets also in the parentheses a few lines earlier that ki iskish lamisu diskish lachli avidale iskish. They also take it out there. And the reason is because there's a similar Gemara in Sanhedrin. And if we pull up the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Gemara over there, Sanhedrin Chav Beis, it seems to leave out this. So if we let's just pull up the Gemara in Sanhedrin over here. Chav Beis Amud Beis. So share screen. Second, let me pull up the Gemara there. So the Gemara there, let's see, 22b. Let me share it now. Okay, so now you have the Gemara in Sanhedrin over here. So it says over there, Melech, can you see it or it's too small? See if we can make it bigger. It's good. Stuff going on here. Yeah, maybe I can make it bigger here. Let's see if that makes it bigger.
Rabbi, it looks fine.
It's good. Okay, so it says Melech Mustapim Chol Yom. A king takes a haircut every day. Melech Yom Techazena Necha Kohen Gadol every Shabbos. Every from Mayor of Shabbos every once a week, and Shmas Maschad he says the reason Kohen Hedyot is once every 30 days, and then it says how do we know over there? Kayashia, it says basically the same Gemara, and so then he asked this question: if so, nowadays should we just like in the Nami now also? The Gemara answer is Dumya Diyayin, similar to wine. That just like wine is only if there's a Beis Hamikdash, then also letting your hair grow is only if there's a Beis Hamikdash. If there's no Beis Hamikdash, you're allowed to let your hair grow. That's the Gemara's question, initial understanding. And then the Gemara, of course, proves that wrong. If it's not at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, what do you mean? We have Rebbe, and Rebbe says that it's allowed now because it's been so long. But the rabbis argue. That's the question our Gemara asked. Maradir says there the reason is because Mehera Yibana Beis Hamikdash, and you need a Kohen Roy Lavoida. But here we need a Kohen Roy Lavoida. So the Gemara says also behind the time Mehera Yibana Hamikdash. Ben Kohen Roy Lavoida. So the Gemara says here also you need a kohen fit to do the avodah. So the Gemara says over there it's possible to just take a haircut real fast, but you can't just get rid of the wine. The Gemara says, what do you mean? You could get rid of the wine because you could go to sleep or take a little walk. The Gemara says that only works if it's a revius. If it's more than a revius, it doesn't work. So the Gemara, so therefore, there's a difference. When it comes to wine, it takes a long time to get rid of. When it comes to a haircut, you can take a real fast haircut. And now Rav Ashi says, Shesuye yayin, the machali avoida gozru b'rabbanan. When it comes to drinking wine, that it's machala, it's machalel the avoida, or it's makes it weekday, makes it Monday, it makes the avoida unkosher. So the rabbis prohibited. Roish, when it comes to a haircut, the rabbis didn't say you have to take haircuts every 30 days because you're not going to ruin the avodah even if you end up doing the service. Then the Gemara, of course, brings the contradiction. Meisvei, we have a brisa that there's the chi of misa, even shsuya yayin. So the Gemara says, how do we know it? The Gemara says this gives shsuya yayin for Roish, that we have a comparison that just like over there, there's misa, here also is misa, the death penalty if you do the service and you didn't take a haircut. So the Gemara says, and from there we understand that you also ruin the avodah, even if you don't take a haircut and you do the service, you ruin the avodah. Just like here. So the Gemara answers that maybe, so Ravina says to Rav Ashi, this, so the Gemara doesn't really answer, the Gemara there says this word kasha. If you see the word kasha here, that is interesting. The Gemara in Sanhedrin ends with the word kasha. The Gemara here tries to say that maybe
questionable.
Maybe you don't follow this. If so, mina, and if so, from that we can say that the same law would apply. The Gemara says no, don't compare the two. For a misa, you compare the two. That just like there's a death penalty. Here also there's a death penalty. That's what the Gemara initially said. That just like, and if so, the same thing would apply to ruining the avodah, just like by wine, it ruins the avodah. By having your hair grow long, you ruin the avodah, the service in the temple. If you did the service, it ruins it. And the Gemara and our Gemara wants to say, at least the way, the wording we have in the Gemara is, no, maybe it only is comparing Misa, but it's not comparing the fact that it ruins the avodah. Maybe it's not comparing that as well. And the Gemara in Sanhedrin doesn't seem to follow that. Gemara there just says kasha. It's a kasha, which means that it seemingly the Rav Ashi's answer doesn't work because it would seemingly be automatic that if you get misa, then it ruins the avodah there also, and therefore the rabbis should have decreed that you should not let your hair grow long. Now the Gemara then continues and brings up this next thing about, so that's one difference, that our Gemara had those extra words there, which you see the parentheses means one of the rabbis felt it should be taken out because it's not in Sanhedrin. Now, it could be the reason why the rabbis want to take it out is because there is a halacha, there's a law that whenever it comes to a hekesh, ein hekesh lechatzoyin, you never have a partial hekesh. You never have so it could be that's the reason why the Gemara in Sanhedrin seems to be the overriding Gemara, and therefore they're questioning the wording in this Gemara. Because the Gemara in Sanhedrin ends off with kasha. Here it doesn't. Here it doesn't end off with a kasha. Kasha means a question. We don't know the answer. Here it doesn't end off that way. Here it wants to answer it. But the thing is, the answer that our Gemara gives is not such a good answer. Could be the kasha is a better way of concluding the Gemara than the answer our Gemara gives. Because since ein hekesh l'chatzoin, you're not supposed to have a partial hekesh. That whenever you compare two things, we compare it completely. And so if the law is that just like a person does the service, a kohen does the service while he's drunk, he gets misa, the same thing would apply to a kohen that does a service with long hair, he'll get the death penalty. And the same way, if we're comparing the two, then we have to compare other things as well, which would mean that just like the person who does the service while he's drunk, he ruins the avodah. It's not kosher. They'd have to redo some of those the avodah. So the same thing would apply to a person who does the service while he has long hair. He ruins the avodah because ein hekesh l'chatzoin. We don't take a comparison for impartial. We do it completely. If you compare, you got to compare all matters, all of the things there. Everything about drinking applies to everything about letting your hair grow long. So the same rules would apply. So it could be that's why the commentaries seem to want to follow the Gemara Sanhedrin maybe versus the Gemara here. Then the Gemara continues. Yes.
But the other thing that's significant, I think, is that one is specific in the Torah and the other one is not. The other one is from Yechezkel. So that's also a problem with the Hekesh.
That is the way the Gemara understands the Hekesh is that it's completely from Yechezkel. The entire Hekesh is Yechezkel. It's not it's not like there's one Hekesh in Chumash and one Hekesh. It's one Hekesh. It's in Yechezkel, comparing the two verses, the two words in the same pasuk in Yechezkel. But then the Gemara continues and goes along your lines, Jeffrey, and jumps to this issue, and that is that the Gemara says which is a really repetition from our Gemara. It says until Yechezkel came, who said this? And he says until Yechezkel came. What about this other pasuk also about someone who's uncircumcised? They're not allowed to do the service and don't do the service. So so what about until Yechezkel came? So Gemara says until Yechezkel came, they knew it from a tradition. Yechezkel came and put it in the pasuk. So here also the Gemara says that it was a tradition. We had a tradition, and the tradition is that the tradition is that just like there's death penalty for doing the service while drunk, the same death penalty would apply doing the service with long hair. And then Yechezkel came around and he put it into a pasuk. So that's the end of the Gemara. And the only thing is, there's the parentheses, and you see it over there in Sanhedrin also.
Correct.
That now the Gemara says this thing about maybe v'chigamri halacha lemisa. When do we have this tradition? This tradition was only applicable for Misa, but not that it ruins the Avoida. What does this mean? That it could be when our Gemara was relying on the Hekesh, then you have to compare everything. But when it says that it's a Gemara, that it's a tradition, so we could have a tradition only for one thing, and it doesn't apply to other matters. So therefore, the Gemara there ends off kasha before, but now that it talks about a tradition, a halacha l'moshe misinai, that's a different rule than Hekesh. In the Gemara there, although it does have parentheses, which means one of the commentaries wants to questions if those words should be there, but there seems to be more reason to have the words here at the end of the Gemara when it talks about the Gemara, talks about it's a halacha l'moshe misinai, it's a law from Moses at Sinai, because there you could say the law only applies to the fact that there's the death penalty, but it doesn't apply to ruining the avodah. And maybe you could come up with it. We could say that Rav Ashi's explanation follows this logic, that it could be that that it's not going to ruin the avodah, even though there is a death penalty. Anyway, that's the conclusion. That's a little touch of seeing the other Gemara and seeing how the other Gemara seems to say slightly differently, and it doesn't mention everything that it says here. Okay, so that's this gives you a little background over here. Now the next Gemara says, "Kol hakosu b'Megillas Taanis deloyla mispad." Anything that it says in Megillas Taanis. Again, Megillas Taanis was this booklet that had all these holidays of different events that, and we'll soon see some of the events and stories and miracles that happened, and the Yidden celebrated these holidays. They used to celebrate each of these holidays. It was always, it's almost like nowadays you have at least in the among Chassidim, you have, this day the Rebbe was freed from prison. And that day the won the books. The books got. And this day was a special day. So people the truth is we're supposed to be thanking Hashem. The Rebbe got better. Kislev. This. So in truth, that's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to have holidays and be thankful to Hashem for all the miracles that happened. And the truth is, we often forget about all the miracles there's been numerous, we have numerous miracles happen to us on a daily basis, but we often forget. So in Megillas Taanis, it followed that logic that you're supposed to be making holidays. and thanking Hashem for miracles. The rabbis established these holidays to be thankful to Hashem. And so not only did they make a holiday, but whatever it says in Megillas Taanis, so our Mishnah had a machlokes exactly to what extent, but there were some that you might even be prohibited the day before, the day after. So what did our Mishnah say? So let's go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that whatever it says in Megillas Taanis, Kol HaKosuv Megillas Taanis. Let's just read the Mishnah here, page 15b. We've got to review it in order to understand the next Gemara. Whatever it says in Megillas Taanis, the loy lemispad, that you're not allowed to eulogize. So there were days that they prohibited eulogizing. So it says lefan of asr liachar of mutter. The day before it was also prohibited. The day after it is permitted. That's the first opinion. Rabbi Yosi Amar lefan of liachar of asr. Rabbi Yosi says before it and after it is prohibited, and is prohibited. That even the day after is prohibited to eulogize. Now Rashi tells us, and this is pretty obvious, that whenever it's prohibited to eulogize, that's more strict than just fastings, which means, of course, you're not allowed to fast. You're also not allowed to eulogize. Eulogizing is even more strict. So, and Rabbi Yosi says you can't even eulogize or fast the day before or the day after. The first opinion said you could eulogize or fast the day after, but not the day before. Now, what about a day that it says deloy lehisana? Don't fast on this day. So you'd be allowed to eulogize. You're just not allowed to fast. On such a day, it was a little less of a holiday. You're not allowed to fast on that day. So the first opinion, the Tanakama, first opinion of the Mishnah says, Lefanav Aliyachar of Mutter, you're allowed to fast the day before and the day after. It's only that day, because again, it's a smaller holiday. Well, before and after is okay. Rabbi Yosi says no. The before is also prohibited to fast, the day before. The day after is permitted. So again, we have these holidays that not only are they important that we want to celebrate, we don't fast or don't eulogize, but it's some of them, even the day before and the day after, also are different opinions. But basically, they take on a very serious that even the day before, the day after could also be prohibited to fast. And that's basically what we're going to be discussing. And I see my time is up. So everyone have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye.